But you're not on drugs or anything? People are just looking at you weird?
Not on drugs. Not on drugs. I think about drugs a lot, but I don't do them anymore. I've been sober for a year and a half.
Yeah, that's
So-
a crazy thing about you.
Yeah.
Well, why'd you go to the Hindu temple?
Got my license recently.
Your driver's license?
Yeah, my driver's license, and I've just been looking for places to drive to.
Amazing,
Actually.
dude.
Yeah, I don't know. It took me a very long time to get my license. I just never got around to it.
Where do you live?
Live downtown on Delancey Street.
If you're paying for, like, if you're dealing with parking in New York City, you have to do, like, obligatory random drives to places.
Exactly. Well, I've just been renting this car.
Okay,
on
nice.
This Editorial where you can like rent some random guy's car.
Really?
Yeah, for like it's really cheap. Sorry, it's so distracting. I'm just noticing all these books on your shelf. But
My
there's
bad,
this
dude.
fucking one that
one?
Nick McDonald book, 12.
Oh, my God. You know who told me to read that?
Who?
This is going to be funny for the pod.
Yeah.
Caitlin.
Really?
Caitlin Phillips.
Crazy. That's so funny.
How do you know? What do you know about it?
When I was like, I guess this was just a few years ago, but in like 2018 or something, I was in a bookshop in Vancouver, and I came across that book, and the back, like the description of the book, the back jacket was so overwrought in terms of the description of Nick McDonald, and they were describing him as this wunderkind.
Child genius, right?
Child genius. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, this is the most fucking obnoxious jacket cover, but
Yeah,
really...
he looks like he's 12.
He looks like he's 12. But also the cover of that, if you flip it over, I can see the front.
Yeah.
I love this.
Oh,
like,
with the Michiko Kakutani right
yeah,
in the
the
front?
overall design is
Yeah.
like crazy. And also like the font type was so... Because when did it come out? Like,
It's 84, so it's like kind of
Oh, really?
back in
That's-
early times.
yeah,
Right?
I thought it was a bit later. I thought it was 90s, early
okay.
90s. My bad. But yeah, it stuck with me, seeing that.
It is over the top. Look at this. Michiko Kakutani on the front, Joan Didion on the back, also Jennifer Egan and Hunter S. Thompson.
Whoa,
He had like the child blessing.
Hunter Thompson did
Dude,
it.
that was like... That's the overall day. Yo, why did Caitlin tell me to read this? Dude?
That's so bizarre. But either way, so because I saw the book,
the overhyped.
overhyped book, and I remember the book I bought that day was actually The Information by Martin Amis,
How
which
do you
is
remember this? Dude?
I love that fucking book. Everyone
do?
else hates that book. Like,
Dude,
I fucking love that book.
I still haven't really read any Martin Amis.
It's really
I have
it's
heavy water right there. People always tell me to.
it's incredible. I mean, The Information is kind of like this really really bizarre book. Like a lot of people don't like it. Dean, for instance, like fucking hates that
Okay.
book, but
It's a novel?
it's a novel, like 500 pages, and like it's
Modernist?
actually like an autobiography, but like it's about this middle-aged English author whose best friend is also a writer, but he becomes really famous, and the main character doesn't. I think that's it. It's been a while since I read, but
Classic.
that's the kind of this is what's happening to Martin at the time, even though his fucking father was like. It's impossible for that to actually happen to him
Right.
because he was born famous, right?
Right.
So,
I don't
but,
know he was born famous. What do you mean he was
yeah,
born?
Kingsley Amis's father was like
Oh, I
very
see, I
famous,
see, I
very
see.
famous English author.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he like. I mean, we could get into Martin Amis, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
very funny. Like his father really defined his whole life in this bizarre way, specifically like this. I think when his father died, there was like this big tabloid extravaganza, and they were, the English tabloids are very famous for
Yeah.
being, merciless
Yeah.
and invasive. And they were both of those in particular to the Amos family.
To Amos?
And if you want to get into Martin Amos, watch all these Charlie Rose interviews with him. There's
Charlie
like
Rose
fucking
interviews are the best, dude.
He's the best. There's like 20 fucking
Wow.
interviews with Martin Amos over the
Wow.
years, and so you can see him just degrade in age and
Oh my
degrade
God.
and he becomes this. I mean, he was always
That's
a very
so funny.
austere,
Yeah.
cold man, and he kind of, looked down as he spoke, and he spoke very, he articulated very clearly, and was very cold,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he was so since the very beginning, but he becomes even more so as he gets older, and it's just very interesting to watch. Like it's almost like every 2 years, there's fucking another Martin Amos interview on Charlie Rose,
Hilarious.
but it's really
He was big for you, or?
sorry,
He was big for you, or?
yeah,
Yeah.
he was. And I remember the opening lines of that, the information. He said, "Cities are full of men who cry in their sleep and don't know why." And then it says, "Swing low in your weep ship." I remember it's not in that
Damn.
order, but swing low in your weep ship. Cities are
In
full
your
of
weep ship, your ship
in
you
your
weep in.
yeah. Swing low in your
Wow,
weep
weep
ship.
ship,
Cities
dude.
are full of men who cry in their sleep and don't know why.
Damn.
It opens like that. It's fucking. I love that book. I love
Damn.
that book.
Damn. Do you read Humboldt's Gift?
No, I haven't.
You read any of him?
No.
That's a similar thing where it's like, but no, it's like he gets really famous,
Yeah.
and then his old mentor is like super pissed. Is like, he says like, you stole everything from me.
Yeah.
So yeah, the writer rivalry
Yeah.
books.
But it's funny because the information is actually it's two different narratives going on at the same time. The second one is the first one is this kind of like well-to-do like English author who spends a lot of time at tennis clubs and shit like
Yeah.
that and driving around in his nice convertible and pining to be richer and more famous.
Yeah.
And then the other half is this. It takes place in like South London, I guess, is like the poorer
Yeah.
kind of English person. But I don't remember how they connect. I think this guy ends up robbing the main character, and so, but it's written in this
okay.
kind of like almost blackface, but like English blackface. Like
Whoa.
he's trying to affect like a black South Londoner
Damn.
in this second part, and it's filled with like patois.
Damn, dude, this sounds like fuckboy.
But this is why people don't. If the book was only the first part, I think it would be much more well received. But
Interesting,
it's like
interesting.
over 400 pages, like long ass book,
Yeah.
and it's the parts that are from this kind of the poor
Yeah.
side
It was
are
too,
really
too hot for the.
really funny.
They're funny.
Yeah.
Do you like Coetzee?
No,
you read any?
I have. Yeah. Wait,
Which
what's his
ones?
big one?
Disgrace.
Yeah, I read Disgrace. Wasn't such a fan
You
of
don't like it?
but I feel like I kind of read it at a time where I
Okay.
was quite negative on
On
a
what?
lot of things. But
Old-
I also
old-
I
old
felt like
perverts?
I felt like he was just kind of like a different version of Houellebecq, and
Okay, so interesting
Yeah.
because I'm realizing now. I mean, I've read Disgrace a minute ago, but then
Yeah.
someone was writing me and saying yeah, bringing up Coetzee a lot, and then told me to read like Youth and stuff. So I've been going back on some other ones of him, and first of all, he is like my dad. Like no, but you know what I mean, like that kind of like
Yeah.
Because this one's a memoir, Youth,
Yeah.
but it's
Can I
third
see it?
person. It's third person, but it's a memoir when he's like 22.
interesting.
But it's like cold, but then it's also like I realize he kind of is the more palatable Houellebecq. dude.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, Disgrace is obviously explicit like that because the teacher.
Well, he doesn't
teacher's
go.
like a
He doesn't
pervert.
allow himself as many flights of fancy as Houellebecq does.
Well, Houellebecq goes like full. Yeah, like.
But the flights of fancy become like that's where he gets into like his pretty racist and misogynist shit or whatever the shit he's
who
criticizing.
Coetzee?
No, Houellebecq. So
Houellebecq,
that's
Houellebecq,
like
yeah.
Coetzee never gets there.
Well, like yeah, and he's more his language is more like well, I mean, Houellebecq's like really literary too, but it's more like in Disgrace, he's like picking up perverts, him picking up little girls by like reciting like Byron,
Yeah.
like lines of Byron.
remember
and you're
that.
like, and then he goes meets his daughter. Yeah, I think he's kind of that's my recent revelation is he's like he might have entered a pantheon, but
Yeah.
it's too late to early tell because I have to read all his books now.
I have to read more. Yeah, I have to read more. So I was like Joy Williams used to be my favorite author.
Oh, yeah?
And before I started Heavy Traffic, she was like
Dang.
I read everything by her. I was like a huge fan. And she once said like, they were asking me like, what do you
Yeah.
read? And she said, I read blah blah blah, but I also read all the greats. And she was like DeLillo, Coetzee, and
Nice.
Dostoevsky.
Oh wow!
And so it's like, and I'm not well versed on any
Yeah.
of them, honestly. So I feel
Yeah.
like I've been trying to go back and read. I read DeLillo for the first time, or I read Omega when I was like 20 or something when it came out.
Okay, yeah.
Was it Omega or Omega Point? I can't remember.
Yeah,
but-
I think Omega Point. Right?
whatever,
I
but-
don't know. I've only read White Noise. And,
Yeah, I read White Noise over the summer, but
You did? For
yeah,
the nice.
for the first time.
It must have been weird reading it now with all the Hitler studies and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it confusing?
Well, I like yesterday I was driving along the highway back to the city, and
You're just so stoked that you can drive now. You're just constantly talking about it. So, by the way, the other day I was parallel parking. I did it perfect.
got a free point.
Yeah. I love
Also
that,
known
dude.
as a K-turn.
Yeah.
No, but I was just driving on the highway, and there was this fucking car on fire in the other lane, and it was
right.
like it was a Sprinter truck. It was this
Right.
huge truck, not huge, but it was a Sprinter, and it
Yeah.
was Sprinter van. It was fucking on fire, and it was like the fumes were going on for at least I'd say a mile and a
Yeah.
half. Like it was really the whole thing was a
Yeah.
shell by the time we
Yeah.
passed it.
Yeah.
And I was just, I mean, I
The
was
scene
thinking,
when he's evacuating. Right?
yeah, but I mean, like you couldn't help but inhale. But I think of that shit more than
I read
the
that probably 10 years ago.
Yeah.
The fact that I remember that is like says a
Yeah.
testament to the book.
True.
You know?
Do you normally remember? Because I actually like with the information, like I can remember sentences from it. I can remember,
Yeah.
like I can remember certain
Well,
elements.
you remember
of
the
it.
first line in the same book you bought that one day.
Yeah, well, I have like an
Thing.
autistic memory
Yeah,
for certain
yeah, yeah,
things.
yeah,
But
yeah.
if you were to ask me, like I can't even remember the plot
Yeah.
that good. You know, just
Yeah.
like a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And like even books that I recently read, they fade from memory
Yeah.
very quickly. But certain elements of
Certain
them, like
elements.
sentences, or
Yeah.
they really stick with
Yeah,
me.
I think about that a lot, like what
Yeah.
you remember from a thing, and I use that as my barometer for what makes a thing good. If it,
Yeah.
or it reminds me of like, yeah, I was trying to alphabetize my books again for the millionth time, but I always cite this one really tiny book that Sheila did like 2 years ago. Like it was basically one essay from a common
Yeah.
reader of Virginia Woolf, and it was called like How Should One Read a Book.
Yeah.
And she wrote the intro for it. It's one of those books that are like really small, and half
Yeah.
of it's her intro and half of it's. But she has a whole rant about like the shape of a book, and the shape that a book that you remember a book as. But I always so that's always my barometer. I'm like, especially with like stuff I don't know with stuff that I read. I'm like, or people will be like, I don't like this. I'm like. Yes, but you remember you were thinking
Yeah.
about it for 2
Right.
years after.
Yeah.
But it's not a very effective like barometer. For
Well, but I
people.
find when I talk to other people who work in like magazines or like critics or people who review books, they always remember so much, and I'm like jealous of them. It's like
Yeah.
I can't remember shit. Like
Yeah.
it's funny. I remembered. Or I was thinking about this
Yeah.
part from Submission by Houellebecq. And the part that, like, I remember when I read it in, like, 2016 or whatever. It came out 2015, but
Yeah.
there's this part where he's eating sushi with that young girl. I don't really even remember the plot, really,
Yeah.
but there's this line he says, I wanted to eat sushi, but I also wanted to die. And I remember that line. Like, that line just stuck with me.
Damn, dude, that's world shattering. That's
Yeah.
world shattering. Did you read the new one yet?
Haven't. It's on my list. I
Oh, yeah, it's on your
really
list?
want to. Have you read it?
I'm like a part in.
Is that it there?
That's it right there.
It's big.
Yeah, I had the PDF for a long time, and then Harold overzealously bought this, and then he read a little bit of it and started reading like a million other books. So
Yeah.
I stole it from him.
Nice.
But it's a bit weird reading a big Houellebecq. But it's all
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like a lot of Houellebecq.
Yeah, it is a lot of Houellebecq. Yeah.
What do you think so far?
He's very calm. He's very calm. I like the way he breaks up his books into parts.
Yeah.
Or like I like his sense of like pacing over the duration of a book. I mean, obviously this is different, but I kind of like got to the first like 100 pages and I was like, yeah, he had some funny parts, but yeah. You read all the rest of the. Oh, this is another one I read recently. Another Houellebecq was this Lanzarote. Did you ever read this?
Never read this.
It was a
one, no.
novella he wrote in between, like the first and second, or the second and third books.
I
And it's
remember
pretty
reading
much the-
Whatever, which was his first
Right.
book, and it was like
Right.
this size.
Oh yeah, I like the way he starts. The way he start a section is good too. He's starting the second section, and he is going to pick up his sister. He's going to visit his sister, and Hervé is his sister's husband.
Yeah.
And she goes, Hervé was waiting for them by the car, smoking a cigarette. He gripped Paul's hand. That's Paul. He's a protagonist for a long time, and seemed pleased to see him. And then he goes, "People like me," Paul said to himself with surprise, or more precisely, they appreciate me. Let's not overstate the case.
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
It's kind of ridiculous.
pretty
It's kind of ridiculous. It seemed like kind of It seemed like kind of autistic. It seemed like not like him.
It's-
He's like,
but it's
"People
like
me."
a-
or let's
like-
not over.
But listen, like yeah, like an autistic man imagining what someone might think, which is completely inaccurate. Like no one's ever thought that besides him.
Yeah. People like me. But yeah, he that is an appeal to him is the always like. But I also want to die.
Yeah.
Like at least at some point in your life.
The dialectic,
It's very-
though. This is like one of the most important
What do you mean by
lessons to learn, or that I learned.
Yeah.
Like, what gives a character like a depth, or like even a sentence, or even a section depth, is
Yeah.
like when you present something and then you present the exact opposite of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that with Bernhard. Like he was obviously the master of that. Like
Yeah.
in one sentence, which obviously might go on for a long time. He would present an idea, like he would say, oh, well, this person was very joyous and overcome with, mirth,
Yeah.
but they also had extreme suicidal tendencies.
Right.
You would just,
Right.
you would have both things in the same person, or,
Right.
and I find like that, like when you read something like that, it's almost like a physical thing in your brain switches, and
Yeah.
I don't know, but because I think when most people
Yeah.
sit down and write, like that character would be like, oh, he would just kind of be that same person the whole time, but like to have this multitude of things going on at the same time,
Right.
in a short period of time, I think is really important.
So I'm here with the editor of Heavy Traffic. I'm just gonna pretend it's a real podcast. But did you go to school?
Dropped out of high school, and I eventually ended up going to architecture school at a university where you don't need to have a diploma to get in. You could just get in with
okay.
a portfolio. It's called the Architectural Association. It's in London. It's like a private architecture school, and they're really known for having like you can go there as a writer. You can go there as like an artist.
Okay.
But of course the end goal is that you would become an architect, and it's extremely rigorous and like hard to do. So even if you get in as a writer, you're expected to design buildings and shit like that. But there's like a long tradition of writing in architecture, like Rem Koolhaas or Bernard Tschumi, or Shin Takamatsu, like all these guys. Like I really loved reading their writing.
Wow.
And I loved architecture writing almost as much as the buildings themselves. But while I was in architecture school, I'd also met like my good friend Tom Bettridge and like a few editors and stuff, and I started writing for magazines on the side, and eventually, like I was too broke to continue architecture school, so I never finished my degree, and I just went straight into magazines.
Okay.
And
where'd you go to London from? Where'd you grow up?
I went to London from Berlin. It's a long story, but so I dropped out of high school like 2010.
Where?
That was in Vancouver.
In Vancouver.
Vancouver.
Okay.
So dropped out of high school 2010.
Whoa.
And then came to New York. My brother lived in New York, and I was auditing courses at Cooper Union with him. And then went to Berlin, lived in Berlin for a while, was working in galleries, and that's where I met like Tom and more writers and stuff.
Okay.
And that's when I really became obsessed with writing.
Oh, okay.
And then decided to go to architecture school in London with because I grew up like pretty poor, and my idea was like, okay, like I know if I can get people in a room, I can kind of talk them into letting me into the school. And then if I can do that and get a fucking scholarship, I can get a degree, and then maybe I can just have a calm, stable financial existence, because I've been poor for so long. I just didn't want to be that my whole life. So I thought architecture was a way out of that.
Okay.
This school, you don't need a high school diploma.
Yeah.
Just gonna go do it. I had been like self-publishing things, and I think I'd maybe had one article in 032C. So I had kind of like work to show and stuff like that. And so I got an interview at the school, went in there, and they let me in eventually. But yeah, it was chaos for a long time.
Crazy, dude.
But like I was born in Sechelt in Canada, and then we went down to California. I lived there for like until I was in my later teens. Then I went back to Vancouver for the last couple of years of high school.
Where in California?
Orange County.
Orange County.
In Laguna Niguel. Yeah. Do you know it?
Dude. Well, yeah. I mean, that's where my little sister lives.
Really?
She just moved there from Long Beach.
Yeah, my sister lived in Long Beach. She lived in Biloxi Village in Long Beach. It's just above Steel Beach, so it's just above the border of Orange County.
Okay.
Where my sister lived. I spent a lot of time in Long Beach, like the aquarium and shit. I loved it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, I'm about to go out there next 2 weeks to
Yeah.
LA.
It's amazing.
And then when did you come? When did you come to New York this time?
This time I came back in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's right
from
around when I
London.
came. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Damn. And then you just been writing for magazines and stuff?
I was writing for magazines, yeah, for all those years. And then in 2018, that was like when I first had the idea that I
Start a
wanted to
magazine?
do it. I mean, when I was in architecture school, I was like a shitty student. I've always been horrible at school. And so I continued to be a horrible student in architecture school.
Yeah.
And I was writing for magazines on the side and getting published, and that was really exciting, you know, because I would spend all day in a class in architecture school, and it was, I loved architecture, but I just hated having to do things that other people told me, and so I would just leave all the time and just go read magazines and read and write and shit like that, and eventually, it just became more feasible. Like, oh, that's what. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do, because architecture school is fucking 7 years. And then after that, you have a long period of time before you're able to actually build usually. And you have to go work in some firm that sucks and, have horrible hours and for horrible pay. And it's a really long process before it's like, oh, you're actually doing something you want to do or you're making good money. And it just didn't seem feasible.
Okay.
So, but yeah, and then around 2020 was when I think...
That's when Heavy Traffic started?
Yeah, I decided to start it.
Yeah. And then you were close with Honor and stuff too, yeah?
Yeah, I guess I met, I think it was 2018 as well when I was in New York, early 2019 maybe. I met Marcus Memorian, who was this friend of, he's the one who introduced me to Honor. And but yeah, he was really close. He passed away in 2022, but he was a fucking brilliant writer. And it was when I met Marcus and I was reading his writing, and I was looking at my own writing.
Yeah.
That I started thinking oh, maybe there's something here.
Okay.
Maybe there's, because I miss him a lot, and I think to this day I haven't really found someone who could replace him in a writerly sense. There's no one who really wrote like him, and he really pushed me to, because I had this bullshit idea oh, I'm gonna start a magazine. It wasn't gonna happen without Marcus, but he was oh, who do you want to be in it? Give me a list of people. Let's do it. He was the one who was a motor.
That was in 2020.
Yeah, when he was really pushing. I remember I was back in Vancouver for the winter of 2019, because my mom and brother still live there. And I remember I was sitting in this deserted market in downtown Vancouver. It's this beautiful, 2-story atrium capped building in Vancouver, and I was it was horrible weather outside, and I was texting with Marcus, and I kind of sent him this list of 10 people haphazardly, and he was oh great, let's just do that. So he really pushed me to do it. And Julian Garcia as well, who was our initial designer, he was a good friend of mine, was really helpful, and so it just kind of, but there was I think there's something in the air around that time as well. So it's not.
That's okay. No, we're good.
I'm forgetting. I'm missing a.
Yeah.
There's one part I'm forgetting that
What
is
do you
really
mean?
important, but I can't remember. There's
in terms
one
of the
part
inception?
in the conception of it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think what it came from as
Yeah.
well was I was writing for magazines Interview.
Yeah.
And shit like that, and
Yeah.
it was so. I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah,
having written there, but it is soul crushing
Okay,
to have writing be siphoned through this system of
Because it just changed everything.
advertisers and editors.
Oh, okay,
But
that
although
aspect.
they gave me a lot of freedom as
Yeah,
well. But I started writing fiction on the side, a lot of fiction, and
Okay.
and it was almost in protest against all how horrible other stuff was, because I think when you're younger and you get published in a magazine, it's really exciting.
Yeah.
But then as time goes on, you realize wow, this isn't. It's deadening to think of a life of just doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah, no offense.
There's a lot of people who do that.
just shots, just raining out right now. But that's what that's what podcasts are for.
Yeah. I just think.
No, I know what you mean. I can't. I haven't. I feel like I'm having a little bit of a crisis. I'm not having a crisis, but I'm just.
I'm in deep crisis right now. I want
You are?
To anyone who's offended by me saying that, I'm in a deep crisis of
Are you joking?
writing. No, I'm not
Okay.
joking. I'm in a deep
You are?
writing crisis right now.
Wait, why?
Deep writing. I just can't. having a hard time writing in the past couple months.
Writing your own fiction.
Writing my own fiction, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think there's a few but you were gonna say something.
Well, I was just gonna say, just in terms of the aspect of like, it's first really exciting to be published in magazines, and then after a while, you're kind of like, I feel like for the past 3 years, like, I've been in like I've been in this like, I've just been like, in a way, kind of like confused. It's been weird in a way, just going through putting a book out and stuff like that. But also, I've been like weirdly motivated. Like I've been like, I guess it's kind of like you motherfuckers. Like I'm gonna write this. And I didn't even really realize I was like dealing with this in this all the stuff in that way.
Yeah.
And like the last like 6 months, I feel like okay, I did like I just don't I don't know, I can't really see the point of like motivating myself to. Do you know what I mean?
I feel exactly the same way. I feel exactly the same way. Like this kind of lack of, but I would say I don't have, because I used to have the same lack of motivation. Like, oh, you're gonna fucking do that. Well, here's this. It's like this kind of competitive thing.
Well, I want some competitive. I don't feel any competitive anymore.
I don't feel, but I do feel like that element of it, the competitive against peers, that's kind of dissolved. I don't feel that anymore. But I do feel a competition. Like I feel like I could write a lot better than I'm writing right now, and so I'm competing with myself in this way.
Yeah.
And but you can't win that game, and so I think it just leads to like depression if you're competing against yourself.
Eating sushi and also wanting to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just wanting to die.
Just wanting to die.
But I was kind of working on this book all last year.
Yeah, I remember talking about it.
Yeah, and but eventually the main character in that book became too intertwined with me and who I actually am. And I think what made like me excited about writing in the beginning and like Heavy Traffic or those early pieces and Marx's early pieces, it was never us as the main characters. It was these fucking bizarre characters. Like we obviously there were shades of us in these characters, but it was never just like a version of autofiction or something, or like a mild characterization of us. But I think in writing this book, that's kind of, I was using Holderlin as this main character, Frederick Holderlin. But I kind of like, it became too intertwined with my own feelings. Now, when I sit down to write, I'm just writing like about me, and I'm just like, that's so fucking banal, It's like, I don't want to do that. And like I always used to, like whenever I left the house, I would be very inspired by characters and people that I saw and stuff, and they would always make their way into the writing and into the book, and that hasn't been happening. I think another big part of that is that the magazine is a lot of work.
It's so much work.
It's a lot of fucking work, and like it's starts from right when I wake up, and I used to wake up and like not check my phone for a few hours and just write, and that's the way to do it. And I can't. If I do that, then it's like I kind of miss things, and it's hard to do that now, and like there's. Especially now when the new issue comes out, there's all this logistics and like
unreal
shit like that.
Heavy Traffic 5 out now.
Yeah, Heavy Traffic issue 5.
Pop, dude.
Out now.
Sick high vis colors. You can wear on the construction site.
Safety yellow.
safety first, dude.
Yeah, it was a pain in the ass to get the color mixed and made, and
that's fire, dude.
It was
rock some steel toes and some fucking fucking high vis vest to the reading.
But also like as you can tell from my biography, like it's very choppy, and it's like there's 5 years here, 5 years there.
That's how I grew up too.
Yeah, since the time I was a child, since like I left where I was born, within a couple of years. Then I left that place 3 years. And 5, it was like, it was such a fucking soup of different places, and now I feel like I've been in New York for years, and I'm same apartment, same this, same. It's like I can spend a whole week. I mean, I don't leave my apartment for days sometimes, and I'll just be there working, and it's like. How much does this kind of stasis play into the kind of malaise that I feel? I mean, So I just wanted to say, like, I also feel very excited about the magazine, but in terms of my own personal writing, I know I could.
I mean, it's an unreal thing, dude. I've dabbled. Obviously, I was the editor of New York Tyrant for about 5 weeks back in 2021. And that was everything else aside, just that element of it. Everything else aside, just that element of being the arbiter of what goes in there was one of the most, like, I don't have the temperament for it. I don't do logistical, I only do logistical things, like, if, like, the IRS is gonna, if I have to, do you know what I mean?
You must.
Like, And it's crazy. It's crazy. People get crazy towards you.
Yeah.
It's just a crazy thing.
Yeah.
And then yeah, other. I know about that side of. I might want to bust this open, dude.
Yeah, bust it open.
But
Wait, actually, could I pee quickly? I
yeah, go
meant
pee.
to
Let's
before.
pause real quick because I want to
Okay.
get some more coffee.
For sure. Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't mess with any of the flow of anything for editing reasons later.
Nice.
But
Wait, do you mean to say that you didn't edit or you didn't move anything for the purposes of this interview or for your own editing?
for my editing of this interview.
Oh, for your editing
You
of
know what I
this
mean?
interview, I see. Oh, okay.
What do you mean for my own editing? Yeah.
So I thought maybe because I've become very obsessive about like where things are placed in my apartment.
Oh, I see.
Like really OCD.
I bet you have a very tidy apartment.
Tidy? Yeah, it's really
I
tidy.
bet, dude. It takes a tidy. See, if you one look at my apartment, you know that I'm not. And this is like probably the best my apartment's been in at least since Amelia left town. It's
Yeah.
in a minute. You know what I mean?
Well, I have my apartment is on Delancey Street. It's in this very old building,
Nice.
and if I didn't take care of it, it would really look like shit. Like it would be like, it would like give me skin problems from bacteria. Like it would
Yeah.
just like mold would develop. Like you really have to stay on top of this apartment that I have. It's not an option for it to be dirty.
I mean, one would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what were we saying? We were talking about malaise and
Yeah.
oh yeah, and just the task of being an editor. I mean, it's really a very generous thing.
It is. I mean,
to do.
well, it is in the sense that, but no one really recognizes that.
No one recognizes. I'm recognizing
Yeah,
right now. I love how you start out with the letter, dude.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Start off right.
I
with
love
letter.
the letter from the last one.
Thank you.
Yeah. So obviously, just to say a couple six. So you got no. Let's talk about. Well, yeah. Just before I forget, I thought it was crazy that from the last issue 4 from the spring,
Yeah.
that obviously you published the piece I wrote in it.
Yeah.
But just the whole thing with Cedric.
Yeah.
Where I got asked to write about him.
Yeah.
And then I was just doing all this research, and literally like during our conversation, he was like, I was like, so you like it was just crazy. Like it made the connection. I mean, it was a little bit sad. It made me like feel like I was just like, this is like, you get a piece of yours in a magazine. You don't even like you're like, oh look, sick, there it is on page 113. All right, I got to go back to reading Houellebecq.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Cedric's also in the last issue. Part
in
of
this
his,
one?
No, the last one. Yeah.
Exactly.
The one that you
issue
were in.
4. Yeah, exactly.
With a play that he wrote. Yeah, he's I'm gonna go see him. I think. Wait, when does this come out?
probably next week.
Okay, cool. So yeah, we're gonna announce it. So yeah, we're gonna go to London and do we're gonna
you
do a
are?
reading there. We're gonna go to London, Paris,
Nice.
Berlin, and we're gonna do
Nice,
some
dude.
launches over there.
Nice.
Finally, I think.
He gonna read some?
Sorry.
He's gonna read some.
No. He's
Oh,
not
no,
gonna
no, no.
put-
He's
He's not
just
gonna
gonna
read, but
meet
he'll
up
be
with
there.
them.
Yeah.
Cool.
I wanted to actually kind of put him in, but Dean wanted. Dean's gonna read, but
Nice.
his suggestion was kind of, it should just be English
Okay, nice.
authors. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. But that shit's crazy. That's like some.
I'm just kind of throwing Dean under the bus there in case Cedric hears.
yeah.
it's Dean's fault.
He
Well,
was
he's-
gonna, but Dean said.
Yeah, he was
Dean
on my
very
list, but
Anglo supremacist.
yeah.
So yeah. So this just came out last week.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just the first box arrived. I think last Thursday or last
Okay.
Friday.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
appreciate
it's
you
been-
coming to bring
Yeah, of
me
course,
one. So
of
yeah,
course.
So you want to talk about some of so you got Bud and Lynn Tillman,
Yeah.
Bud Smith and Lynn Tillman. The
Yeah.
last two
This is a
stories.
really yeah, they're both great. Bud's great.
yeah.
Yeah, they're this is the most abstract issue, I think. I think
Okay.
it's a pretty abstract one. I think there's a few pieces in there, like Amalia Ullman's piece or Mark Leckie's piece. They're they're really abstract. Particularly, I think Mark's piece is really abstract. So it's kind of like I don't know.
Mark Leckie.
Mark Leckie.
Who's that?
English artist.
English
One
artist?
of my favorite artists, actually. He's great. I think he's like Gen X. He's been making stuff since the 90s. He has this
Okay.
great video called Fiorucci Made Me Hardcore. So yeah, I always like asking. I think this goes back to what I was saying about architects writing and
Yeah.
me really liking architects writing, and also
Yeah.
the fact I didn't go to school for writing at all. So
Yeah.
I really like writing from non-writers.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
you can smell it a mile away when someone's like been to school for writing and when they
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a risk, and sometimes
Yeah.
you'll ask someone who's not a writer to write for you, and it's not great,
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that risk to me is really, like, every issue you should be having some risk involved. Like, it's
Yeah.
not exciting to just pick 10 well-known,
Right.
high-profile, great writers.
Right.
Like, there's not, who cares,
Right.
who've been published in other places.
Right.
It's not exciting at all.
Right.
So I think, there has to be some risk involved. And, sometimes there's a piece that people really don't like. And but sometimes it's great,
Yeah.
Or I would say most of the time it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even the pieces that I've published, because, every issue has to have pieces that appeal to varied groups, right?
Okay.
I think that's how you kind of build an audience. And so there's, some pieces that would be my favorites and others less my favorites, But as is always the case, like, people will come up to me and say that the pieces that I didn't like as much are their favorite pieces, which is kind of like that's the goal. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is one thing artists do a lot. Same with what Cedric did is they will send me like plays or
Yeah.
more screenplay type stuff, and
Right.
which is kind of what Amalia did. Hers is kind of this more
Amalia?
screenplay.
Yeah. Amalia
And,
Ullman. She does film. She's a filmmaker, right? Primarily.
She's
Or no, she's kind of like an
artist.
She's an artist. She's an artist.
When I was like
yeah.
living in Berlin and like working in the art world, and when I was in my early 20s, she was, she was an artist, a really
Yeah.
big artist,
Yeah.
and now she's transitioned to the film world, like
Yeah.
some other artists have.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's, transitioning away from this, dying art world, I guess. But
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, hers and Mark's are.
Okay.
They're pieces that could be performed, on stage. They could be read.
Okay, yeah.
Like as a play almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say what would you say your sensibilities are characterized by in the most broadest sense as a editor?
What do I look for?
Yeah, what do you look for? What kind of impact do you want to have on the current magazine game?
Well, I think a lot of like, I don't like the term alt lit. I don't know how you feel
Yeah,
about
yeah.
it. I really dislike that term.
I'm not part of it, but
Yeah.
that's all I know.
But a lot of people would consider all of us
all
to
of us.
be alt lit, right?
You just have had an interaction with Tao Lin before.
Exactly. Which we haven't really yet. So I maybe we're.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but I think in that kind of world, it was taken over by this really almost strict, like autofiction. You know, like really plain autofiction. Maybe in the last decade, something that I'm kind of like inveterately against.
Okay.
And I think I look for like really pretty intense, stylistic,
Yeah.
sometimes overwrought,
Yeah.
and like,
Your sensibilities are French.
yeah, you think so? Well, I like how you asked me the question and then you answered it.
I know
yourself.
I know what your sensibilities are. I'm giving you the
Police
fucking
interrogation.
giving the
you
stage.
know the answer.
Yeah, I know exactly. So what happened? What's your alibi, bro? No. I'm yes anding. Yeah. Okay, so yes, but I think that's right. A stylistic focus, almost but away from you're kind of like classic fiction, not
Yeah.
it's you're not like drawn you're not idealizing or like the kind of no serif like
Yeah.
quick jot.
Yeah.
You like I don't know. That was
But
pretty
it's also
inarticulate.
it's also changed. You know, is the thing. I think when we started it, it really was in the vein of like Kmart fiction almost.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
Kmart realism.
Dirty realism.
Yeah, Kmart realism. Like
Richard
I-
Ford.
Yeah, it was.
And the aesthetically almost. You
Yeah.
look at some of those
early
books, the way
Joy
the text are-
Williams. Early Joy Williams, I think, was a. What's that book of short stories she has? I
Amelia was just reading her first one.
Which
What's it called?
her first book or
Yeah, what's her
of
first book called?
The Changling. How do you say it?
Maybe it wasn't her first book. What were you talking about?
I remember for if it's the one I'm thinking of, there is there's an Amazon review of that book that I really remember. It's incredible, and they're saying that basically for someone whose name is Joy Williams, it was the least joyful book they've ever read. The most depressing experience of their life was reading this book by Joy Williams. But this person
State
had
of
bought
Grace.
State of Grace. That
Yeah,
you're right. That
yeah.
is it. Yeah, that is it. It's a review for State of Grace, but they said, this person on Amazon had purchased the book because her name was Joy Williams, and they,
That's the first problem.
but it was a great review. I saved it somewhere, but
yeah.
yeah, so anyway. It started.
Yeah.
It started like in that vein.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the cover piece for the second issue by Marcus called Buddy Mold, my name is Buddy Mold. I can't remember the fucking full name, but it's about this character Buddy Mold who lives down in Florida, or he's from Texas. He wants to move to Florida. He's basically a hick who's obsessed with like libertarianism and Waco is it?
Waco.
Yeah, Waco. He's obsessed with Waco.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like characters kind of like that, and you're just. But it's also like I think with Heavy Traffic there were a lot more absurdists. There's a
Okay.
lot of absurdist
Yeah.
tendencies actually.
Yeah.
So it kind of flies off of that. But I will say like I think there's a trend in young writers that I know where they're kind of writing more fantastically now, actually. Like in this book specifically, there's like this
magazine.
issue, excuse
Yeah.
me. There's like 4 pieces that take place in other historical time periods.
Okay.
Or at least touch on other historical time periods, or are dealing with like, spiritually, like religious, talking points. And so, I mean, it's just all this shit that I think is very different, but it's also like we've had that since the second issue. There's been some pieces that are, people writing as if they're living in like Jena in 1803. This kind of
where?
like Jena in Germany, like this romantic language.
Yeah, so romantic.
Storm and Drang like kind of style of writing. So it has changed, and it always is like a mix of things. But yeah, it's funny because I think like. Like the first paragraph of your piece that you wrote, like I really enjoyed that paragraph specifically, and it's like, Gaddis is one of my favorite writers, and I think that paragraph specifically is very Gaddis-esque, And I always remember something he said. He said, people read books. People who've been trained to read books of facts. That's how they read fiction books. You're
Right.
You're raised to read books to look for facts,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's
Yeah.
how a story evolves.
Yeah.
And also this assumption that you can somehow actually write reality
Right.
or write what happened.
Right.
And Gaddis
Right.
says, well, you actually have no idea
Right.
what actually happened
Right.
and where to put emphasis and where not to put emphasis.
Right.
And there's no point writing like that. There's no point writing just to say what happened.
Right.
Right. But
Then
that's what people look for.
Write a police report.
People
write a
actually
report.
look, even if they do it subconsciously, they look
Right.
for certain structures and for
Right.
certain things to happen in stories
Right.
and books. And actually, I think a lot of people who would buy an alt-lit mag actually do the same thing. They look for certain things in a piece. So I always try to not have that to a
Right.
certain degrry.
Right. Interesting.
But that
yeah.
can be like, I remember the first paragraph, to be specific, it was really run on.
Yeah.
And it was very,
It's really Absalom,
I always think of
honestly.
time in terms of time
Yeah.
in relation to like a sentence. You
Yeah.
know, like how much time can you cover in one sentence?
Yeah.
And it's actually remarkable when you realize
Right.
you can if you can cover someone getting up and going to the other side of the room and doing a task
Yeah.
and then going outside, you can cover such a wide breadth
Yeah.
of someone's life in one sentence.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Gaddis does really well, and you did really well in that first paragraph, this whole, the real movement of someone's life.
Yeah.
And you get the sense of time as well.
Right.
So
Yeah. Did you ever have a Faulkner period or no?
he was my first favorite writer. And I remember the first time this is gonna sound really gay,
fire,
but
dude.
the first time I read The Sound and the Fury.
Yeah.
I was 13 or 14.
Holy
but
shit, dude.
I remember I sat down because I was so,
You were like a savant.
I didn't, I had a really tough childhood. I didn't have parents at the time, so I was living with my
shit.
brothers in this one-bedroom
okay.
apartment. And
Whoa.
it was I was basically dropped out of school, so I wasn't going to school at all, and I would just stay home and read all day and read and write. And
the
the writing
fuck?
was horrible. The writing that I wrote then was just the worst shit you could imagine. But I remember I was, I sat down in my grandpa's old chair that he left us.
Yeah.
This huge chair, and it was midday, kind of dark outside, raining. I sat down, I read, and the book opens from the perspective of the retarded child.
Exactly.
Right?
Benji.
Yeah, Benji, and it's Benji.
Yeah.
Yeah, Benji. So it
His
starts
33rd birthday.
Starts with Benji. Yeah, it starts from that perspective. I got 2 pages in, I was so overcome
Yeah.
by what I'd read.
Yeah.
I stood up, I put the book down, and I just ran out of the house. And I went to this lake that we lived by. I can't remember what it's called, but it was a 10-minute, and I was just walking there, just
the
briskly.
fuck?
I was demented. I went this 2 pages because it was
Damn, dude.
it connected with me on such an insane level. And I remember
Damn.
reading that. It would changed my life in the moment.
What?
To read the first 2 pages of
What
The
did you
Sound
do
of
at the lake?
Nothing. I used to be really obsessed with those black and white composition books. You know?
Okay. Yeah.
So, but I had a mini one, one like that.
Yeah.
And I used to write in those.
Yeah.
But it was just retarded because you could. It's in reality 3 pages, condensed
Yeah,
into this little
yeah.
book. So I would just sit there and write. I think I went to the lake and just walked around and wrote.
Nice.
Which is the same thing I do today when I'm overwhelmed. Just go for a walk.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But I remember so vividly reading those first 2 pages, and yeah, it was just changed my life to read Faulkner. He's the father of all of this. Of
He's
everything.
pantheon. Yeah, exactly. He may be the American goat.
Yeah, I think it's funny because sometimes I think if Gaddis had more control over himself in terms of structure,
right.
he could be the GOAT, actually.
Right.
'Cause
Interesting.
there's some parts that
I haven't read Gaddis.
are fucking remarkable
Yeah.
in the recognitions and
Yeah.
Carpenter's Gothic. And
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's. Yeah. It is almost. Yeah. That's. You're drawn. Yeah. You're drawn from Faulkner and stuff versus Yeah. I mean, I don't know what is all the all lit stuff and.
But also, with Faulkner, also, if you look at As I Lay Dying,
Yeah.
okay, because I always there was this editor, a fiction editor. I always, cite this story of L. Rust Hills, who was Joy Williams' husband, who was the fiction editor at Esquire in the 70s, probably longer, whatever. But he wrote this book on, how to write, I think, in the 80s or maybe the 70s. But he said in the book, the perfect short story, he had been told this by someone else, but the perfect short story is a guy walking down Fifth Avenue.
Okay.
Short story, right?
Yeah.
So that's all it is, just A to B. He's walking down Fifth Avenue, and a million things might happen to him as he's walking down the street. But there's this linear kind of motion. But As I Lay Dying, I think, is the perfect book form of that, because you're just carrying the body into town.
Yeah.
You've read?
Yeah, of course.
You're just
many times
carrying the body into town. Like it's this singular motion. That's one thing I really look for in the magazine, actually. This kind of like singular linear motion in a short story.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
What about something I've been thinking more about now recently as I try to get out of my deep disillusionment with what the fuck we're even doing over here, is like probably like whenever you're going through a crisis, you look to the mythical or I don't know, like do you think about the mythical component to like stories, like because in a way, As I Lay Dying is kind of like I don't know, or or I guess you said some of the books some of the stories had kind of spiritual or something like that.
Yeah. Well, Buds, for instance, like
it is?
really, plays on Buddhism and stuff. And then Riska Sevels plays on Buddhism as well, I think.
Riska Seville, okay.
Yeah. Or Judaism, rather,
Okay.
I would say. But yeah.
I
But
don't
what
know
do
Riska
you
Seville.
mean? Do you mean when you go through a time of strife, you look for a narrative arc in it?
Well,
like,
you
almost like
you
a
find
myth?
God. Yeah, no, but like I don't know, like I guess I've just been only thinking about the mythical component of stories, or like I don't know, like burying the matriarch.
Do you think
That's
that
what As I Lay Dying is?
But do you think, like, when
Burying
you
the
go
mother.
into these phases of disillusionment, do you think that this is something that you felt already in your life that is happening again, and that you're actually kind of... Because one thing that I think is mythological with me is I'm doomed to repeat the same patterns in life, and that life follows these kind of inevitable patterns that are very difficult to avoid. And so now when I'm in this kind of down period on my own writing, I might go back and think, oh, well, this, I've gone through this before, and I'm doomed to repeat it again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you realize it's a pattern, and that's kind of it's myth making in a way. You're kind of building this myth.
Okay.
It's like you're characterizing yourself as this entity that's doomed to repeat these things. Like, I don't think I'm feeling anything now that I've never felt before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I definitely think of things repeating.
Yeah.
And cycles repeating, especially when we think on like, I think like an election time or something like that makes you think of like the previous times in the cycle, or even back to like 2020, 2021 and stuff like that. I guess I don't know what I'm asking. Have you read like, you've read like Bolaño and stuff, obviously?
I haven't actually.
You haven't read any?
I fucking haven't. No.
Whoa,
I know.
dude.
Whoa. It's actually it's one of the big blind spots.
Wait,
driving
dude.
reference there, but
dude,
so
you'll love what reference?
driving reference.
Driving
I'm
reference,
blind.
exactly. Exactly. I'm gonna yield to
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense. Wow, because it's I've just been going. The part about the critics. You should read 26. You should just skip everything. Go right to 2666. Dude.
Interesting. Okay.
Because
I would. I will do that. Actually.
The part about the critics is the first part, and it's like it was actually giving me some hope, because I was like running it back. I was like, I've read it so many times. I read my whole undergrad thesis on it, reading all of Bolaño through. But like I was running it back on like 1.5 speed on like the audiobook, as I was like the last couple of days.
You do audiobooks. Interesting.
Sometimes, I mean,
can't do it.
I've been working a lot, so I don't.
Yeah.
You know, I put like As I Lay Dying in my backpack for like books. I just carry them with me for like spiritual strength. I'm not actually doing any reading.
When did you first read As I Lay Dying?
So I was late to Faulkner.
Yeah.
Like I'd read the first 50 pages of Sound and Fury probably like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And just tap out at 50, and like, all right, and then when I moved to New York in the fall of 2019, one of the classes I took was the Faulkner class at Columbia with Errol McDonald. Do you know who that is?
No.
He's a great editor. He was a head editor at Knopf for a while, and
Oh, crazy.
he's Toni Morris. He was Toni Morrison's final
Okay.
editor. He's a Bloom guy, Harold Bloom guy.
Yeah.
But he teaches a Faulkner class there, and you just read Faulkner all the way through, and it was like that was when I was really editing like. Yeah, fuckboy a lot too.
Yeah.
That's when I was first meeting Gian and stuff. I was reading all the Faulkners through. So that was crazy.
But I feel like I could never read Faulkner again. I feel it was because I had these like
Interesting.
experiences reading him.
Yeah.
That it's almost sacred. And
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
it is sacred.
But
I recently ran back Sound and the Fury for like the third time.
really.
Yeah, earlier this year.
I don't.
And I had never understood. This time I understood it all totally clearly.
I certainly didn't understand a lot of it.
Well,
when
I mean
was-
that stuff is like, I guess, just like, a lot of these books are like if you get into like the Bloom, if you listen to like Harold Bloom talk about any book, you
Yeah.
realize that how much like these great works of literature all have to be retelling some biblical story or something like
Sure.
that, right? Like
Yeah,
that mythical
yeah.
element of it, right?
I
Like
see.
the allusions
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Moby Dick and
Yeah.
Ishmael and stuff like that, or even Sound and the Fury being all Easter weekend. You
Yeah.
know, it's a Christ retelling
Yeah.
Christ. Who's the Christ? It's Benji's 33rd birthday. Quentin.
just remember this great sentence from it.
Which
He
one?
said, I think it's either from Sound and Fury or As I Lay Dying, but
Yeah.
he was describing two men fighting down by a lake.
Yeah.
And he said, the man looked like he was in one-armed combat with himself.
Damn.
Beautiful. It's just these kind of like, because like, you can read that sentence and not understand it and still
Yeah.
get a lot from it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what Faulkner.
Yeah.
But there's. I'm just thinking like how this ties back to heavy traffic as well, because I
Yeah.
really do like these kind of, because that's a pretty overwrought sentence.
Yeah.
You're saying a really simple thing in a very
Yeah.
convoluted way.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
very. I remember I was in 4th grade, and my teacher was, or no, couldn't have been 4th, must have been 7th grade, 8th grade,
Okay.
because we were reading Saki, this English author.
Okay, I don't know that.
Late 19th century author. Great short stories. It's a pseudonym, Saki. I
Okay.
don't even know his real name, but it's the story, I think, is called The Hunting Lodge, and it's a group of Englishmen who go out into the countryside and hunt and come back. And when they're coming back, there's this description. He said, he's describing it's like a lodge, so there's a fireplace and armchairs, and he said, something about the room suggested male habitation. I remember sitting there hearing that sentence. I'm like, that's such a fucking. Why would you say it in such a complex? I mean, of course, his was much more a product of his time.
Yeah.
But I just like that one-armed combat sentence. These very like descriptive but kind of bizarre ways to describe. And Joy Williams does that a lot. Yeah, there's this sentence, last one, but there's this one in her most recent book. She was, was it Harrow?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. But and that one I barely even remember that. But I just remember they're at this hotel, and she's describing the balcony, and she said, the balcony did not look like it would suffer to be used. Or something like that, but she said the balcony was suffering in reference to a balcony is just, it's complete. All these very bizarre sentences, but it does start with like I got that from reading, Faulkner and
I think that your taste is a lot of like. Yeah, I mean, it's like attention, just a hyper attention to the language, and that being a thing that is not factual.
Yeah.
Also, the unsayable stuff, because I feel like Faulkner's also like very modern. Like, I always think of the line from Sound and Fury when he says, "Temporary was the saddest word. It isn't even time until it already was." It is. He's always like, That's right before Quentin jumps off the bridge and kills himself at the end of the second part, because he was with that little girl and he remembered all the bad.
Do you drink when you write?
Sometimes, I guess with Fuckboy, I would drink. Yeah, I would like wait, and I knew the whole chapter, and then I would just drink and cry and write.
Because that sentence that Faulkner, that's like, because he drank.
Yeah, of course.
A shit ton. He had his little cart that he
Yeah.
dragged around his house with whiskey on it. But that's a kind of drunk sentence. That's
It
a
isn't
little
even
bit.
time until it already was.
Yeah, but like you can't, because I don't drink
Yeah.
anymore, and
Yeah.
I used to drink a little when I wrote, or I would edit when I was
Yeah.
drinking. I would come up with weird or
Yeah.
hungover rather.
Yeah.
Well, you just see things in a different kind of shape,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I do miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, what was I gonna? Yeah, I guess just I guess I'm on my own journey with the mythical stuff. But I was writing back 2666, and he was making like all these references to like mythology that I hadn't picked up on like the 5 times I read it before.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that first part's great because it's just like 4 nerds who are connected by their obsession with like obscure writer nobody knows, and it's like 3 guys and 1 woman, and they all the 2 young men are competing over the 1 woman. Anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, damn, dude. So what's going on with your book? Are you doing all right with it?
Yeah, I'm doing good now.
It's a novel?
As of a couple weeks ago. Probably a novella.
Probably a
novella.
Nice.
But it because Holderlin lived in this. I don't want to. I'm so sick of talking about fucking Holderlin, so I'm gonna keep it short.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was in this tower for like 30 odd years.
Oh, he was?
He was, the Holderlin Turm in Tübingen in Germany.
Okay.
And he had a mental breakdown, and he was crazy, and he was adopted by this carpenter, and the book was supposed to kind of be a contemporary play on.
Oh, I see.
But you wouldn't if I didn't tell this to you, you would have no
Okay.
fucking idea
Okay.
that he had anything to do with this book at all.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't take place. It's not a historical fiction or something
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
he was just kind of the basis for this character, right? Who's living in this room. But it's like, how do you write 200 pages of someone
Right.
living in a room? But
Sounds kind of Bernard.
it does, yeah. But I've kind of like, I don't like dark writing as much as I used to. I think now,
Okay.
and the book is pretty dark.
It
Like
is?
I've been writing it over the past year and a half, I
Yeah.
guess, and year and a half, and just don't want to write things that are that dark anymore. Just
Okay.
I'm kind of having a. Because, I obviously loved Bernhardt a lot.
Yeah.
And Joy Williams can be extremely dark.
Yeah.
But I just, I feel I want to write something a little bit more tempered.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I found a way that I can, because I have so many different sections of this book.
Okay.
Of him also in the hospital or him outside of the room and
Okay.
all these disparate parts.
Yeah.
But I think I figured out last week how to.
Which ones to put where?
Just how to connect them.
Okay.
Because I know actually how not to connect them.
Okay.
And how you don't actually have to connect things. And I think that's
Okay.
makes for a lot of boring writing when
Yeah.
people try to connect events in a story.
Right,
Those are the
right.
most boring fucking parts. And I find actually you don't have to do that a lot of the time.
Okay.
And especially I think, why would you connect different parts of a story for someone whose mind would not connect these events? If it's a first person perspective,
Yeah.
and his mind would not think linearly through these parts.
Right.
So as long as there's enough to keep the reader informed about what's happening,
Yeah.
you don't need all this connective tissue. I'm really bad at structure and just how to craft the story. I'm just a stylistic writer.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm good at. Really sentence heavy.
You're bringing back. So you're bringing back modernism,
Yeah.
right?
but but I do try to write structure. I
Yeah.
try to write like that, and it's just no, you don't really have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's going better,
Okay.
but yeah, I think you need to have a certain. Or I write best when I'm kind of isolated. At least. I imagine I'm isolated, but
Yeah.
right now I'm as far from being isolated as possible because I have to be in touch with people for this magazine and stuff.
Yeah.
And,
How do you feel now it's done?
sorry,
How do you feel now that it's out?
the magazine.
Are you on to the next?
Yeah, on to the next.
Yeah, for
On to
real?
yeah. Well, but it's it is this thing that has to be fed.
Yeah.
This machine that has to be this
Yeah.
beast, and it's the timing of it is really important, and I think I really want to get submissions earlier than I've been getting them. So I want to have all the submissions for the next issue by the end of the year.
Okay.
And
Damn.
because normally I would like wait a bit longer, but it's like we're going with this new printer in Belgium now.
Okay.
And so to get it shipped here takes a long time.
Okay.
Because it's shipped by boat.
Yeah.
It's just fucking ridiculous.
That's crazy,
it's
dude.
So ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like was not raised as a magazine person. Like I never purchased a magazine in my life. And there's people who love magazines, and like my brother, and people who have opinions about paper and shit like this, or like. So I don't. I'm forced to care about those things now, but you learn so many absurd things, like, and one of them is like magazines are shipped by boat. I find this
That's crazy,
absurd. Dude. The whole mechanism. This is why fucking print is dying, is because the mechanisms that support it haven't been fucking changed in decades. You know?
Right.
If there was some way to, like, it's like with fashion. They change the way that you assemble clothes, and how factories make them, and then suddenly you can buy a shirt for $2 at Zara, and it just if there was some possibility for that to happen to print, it would be great, but it's a long way of saying I have to think about a lot of logistical things.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So it's pretty full time now, and also just.
Do you have other editors help you?
No, I don't. I mean, Richard Turley is the designer, who's really brilliant. He has input and stuff, but in terms of actually, like, part of the reason I want to redo the schedule is because I want to have everything kind of done by the time I send it to Richard.
Right.
Because he does a lot of other shit, and so I want it to be a lot tighter. I mean, Dean Kissick is like good.
Helps.
He's always. Olivia Sperling, is really helpful.
Yeah.
Nice. So people like reach out. People.
Yeah.
Have opinions even when I don't want to hear them. People always just kind of reach out and offer.
Yeah.
Offer a lot of things to say and shit like. But it's really important. You can't. Like, I should hire another editor. And if Marcus. The reason I haven't done it really is because Marcus was the perfect. He would have been my number one choice for my assistant editor, Mark's Memorian, but he died a couple years ago. But he really, like, I even just because we worked a lot together up until like 2021. Then we didn't talk for like a year, and then before he died, we started talking like obsessively every day for hours again, which is what we always used to do.
Wow.
But he was like, we saw writing the same way. We just saw it the exact same way, and he was such a joy to work with. Because he would, well, not all the time, but he would just like, he would offer the best ideas for writers, and he was always filled with ideas, and he was so, he was just writing me all the time. Like when I first met him, he had never been published in a magazine, and I was published in magazines, and he would just send me pieces all the fucking time.
That he'd been reading? Or
no, that he
writing?
had written, and he wanted published in a magazine, and to the point where it was just annoying, I thought.
Yeah.
But then now, like, over time, I realized it's like this kind of, ambition that he had was the best fucking thing, and it's like I would kill to have someone who just, and anyone he thought might work for the magazine, he would just fucking send it to me, and he would put us in, like, he was just so forward, and it's like I really, if
a lot can happen with like the motivation of like an inspired friendship like that.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I relate to that. Yeah. What are you motivated? What are you motivated by now?
It's with a magazine.
Yeah, writing, magazine, all this.
I don't know. I've lost some. I haven't lost the motivation, obviously, because I'm working harder on it than I ever have.
Yeah.
But, motivation becomes less of a. Motivation is something you use to get something started,
Yeah.
But it's like when the machine is up and running, it's less of, the motivation becomes very different.
Yeah.
It's second nature.
Yeah.
It's like,
You
what I look
with their high vis.
Yeah, exactly. Well, but the high vis cover, is funny because the text on the cover. Actually, if you read the text, it says.
I like the text.
Yeah, he's had nothing to say, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of.
You always say stuff like that.
I do.
Yeah, like he thought nothing. No, but that's fire,
Yeah,
dude.
but
That's fire.
this is the last.
She no longer had the language to describe what was happening. See, that's
Yeah.
the. I mean, literally, modernism is a reaction to literally for the first time, like just huge populations of people like
Yeah.
being blown to bits in front of you, and then being like, so we're supposed to write, we're
Yeah.
supposed to say words, and
Yeah.
then you're kind of like pushing that limit.
Well, I don't want to, because no, you're right.
Now we're inundated with words.
Yeah.
Everyone thinks they know. They're being exactly clear.
Yeah, we're completely inundated with words, and but at the same time, people's reading comprehension is
Yeah, where everyone's
at lowest it's ever been.
exactly, and people are in completely different realities.
Yeah, exactly. So reading,
Yeah.
like written language is the most. I don't know. I think you can augur like the future through written language at the moment, and just how flippantly it's used. Just with text and like
Yeah.
Twitter or
Yeah.
shit like this, like the way language is used, or even just people fucking like how many magazines there are now and how many
Right.
fucking different magazines and
Right.
just how flippant. Everyone's a fucking writer now. There's so many fucking writers. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And people I didn't even know who wrote, and they just send shit to the magazine.
Yeah.
Everyone's a writer.
Yeah.
Writing is everywhere, and but at the same time, I feel that it's completely meaningless.
Yeah.
Or it has like a very different meaning than it once did.
Yeah.
As at the same time, we're completely inundated with it. Inundated is a word I use a lot. It's a good
Yeah.
one,
So you're trying to bring back some care for language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I also, I mean, there's part, because like I did study architecture and I have very disparate interests and shit.
Yeah.
And like I would like to try to kind of, like there's something like very masturbatory about just doing writing, or just like if you're just writing about your, like I'm not gonna, I mean, there's a lot of this shit coming out, but like if you're just writing a book about, like downtown or something like that,
Yeah.
and there's, I mean, I
Go
shouldn't
fuck
say, because
yourself.
you can have, sorry?
I said go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. But it's also like, there's so fucking much of it. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? Not all of your experiences are actually unique and interesting. I'm sorry to break it to you.
Yeah.
And, like, just like mine isn't, And so it's just like, I would like there to be a much different.
Well, a lot of the ethic of the Kmart realism and stuff, like Richard Ford and stuff,
Yeah.
is like basically like you're saying, like getting writers who aren't writers
Yes.
to write, and speaking from different vectors of society, which was
Absolutely.
always my thing. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I was, and then I feel like that was part of like the weird confusion of the last 3 years. Is
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, I don't, you know what I mean? Like and then suddenly like.
But do you think that you were able to connect with those like outside characters because you were kind of anonymous before Fuckboy? Because like
That's what I'm saying. That was my life.
Yeah,
There's like this
that was
weird.
exactly,
There's a
yeah.
weird thing on authenticity based on like what happened after the book
Yes,
came
exactly.
out.
Yeah,
you know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Or like right before,
Yeah.
like coming out here on a whim with like, and
Yeah.
going through that MFA program. But that was
Yeah.
all after.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then maybe like after a few years of living opulently in New York City, like
Yeah.
going back working full time again. It's kind of sick, or it's like it's weird, like remembering old selves
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Or I had this old novella I wrote that I didn't like anymore, but then like I've been working the same work again that I
Yeah.
did when I came out here, and like the same things are happening again.
Interesting.
And I'm looking, and I also read that Houellebecq novella, and I'm like, oh, I don't know,
Yeah.
like mining old, because I have so many different projects. But it's like a weird timing thing, of, like
Yeah.
when it's right, the tone's right, and stuff like that.
So what are you gonna do with that?
Well, dude, have you read all of Houellebecq? Have you read Platform?
I've read Platform.
Okay,
Yeah.
you know how he goes on that
That's the one where he has the architect father. Is that, or is that?
it could be because his father dies in the beginning.
Yeah, I think so.
But he goes on that. He takes that trip to Southeast Asia,
exactly,
the
that's
sex
it.
tourism trip. But this one, Lanzarote, which is a few years before, it's like very similar. He basically like at the beginning he goes to like a travel agency. He's
Oh,
like,
so no, sorry. That's it's maps of the That's a different one.
No, Map in the Territory is the architect father.
That's the architect father.
Architect
Yeah,
father.
I
This
believe so.
This one's at the beginning. His
Yeah.
dad died.
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
he's like, father died today. Like, you really fucked my mother in the cunt. Like,
Yeah.
really, that's how that one starts. But it's a similar thing where he goes on a trip, and then it ends abruptly. and there's like a news story at the end.
Yeah.
Of like what happened. It's like a really interesting structure.
Interesting.
And it's only like 100, and the text is all big. But anyway, so I've been mining stuff in a different way. But I do feel like that's part of it is like, I don't think I've quite translated my recent experiences back into like, or like cut out the noise enough. But I feel like you got to be writing from like, you have to be engaged in the world in a way.
You have to. It has to be a kind of ego death. Actually,
Right,
you can't have this sense of self. This like really, you have to be
In your
swimming.
face.
You have to
Exactly.
be swimming through the world in this different way. Actually, I remember when I used to do a lot of drugs and drink a lot. I would wake up the next day and, the one I don't miss doing drugs or drinking, but I do miss the next day when you're so, even just being hungover off liquor or something. Like you're not you. You're just this kind of swimming persona,
Right.
and you have these very avant-garde thoughts, because you're not weighed down constantly by this idea of who you are and what you're doing.
Certainty about who you are, because you often do that rant about the binary between like autofiction, like writing about somebody else. But I don't like, you can't be, when it's bad is when like you're very certain about who you are and you're like telling the reader who you are. That's not good. But if you like undergo an ego death and are sort of like outside looking at a version of you and like poking at sides of it, that's when it gets. But you have to. But every ego death is a new ego death.
It is, yeah.
Like, so I think like, you do one ego death and turn it into a good book.
Yeah.
And then you're like all proud of yourself for like your ego death, but it's done now. You gotta like, you have to suddenly look at everything that you've been going through the world with, thinking about yourself and like what the truth is.
Yeah.
It has to be shaken.
Yeah.
And usually you have to like be outside of your comfort zone in order to do that or something like that. I don't know. So maybe, but I imagine being forced to read a lot of different writers and edit them is helpful. Because that was another thing. Like when I was writing that book, when I was finishing Fuckboy, I was in the MFA program. So I had to read everybody's stuff. And I was constantly going like, nah, you have to do this. You have to do this. And then I was like, oh, I should just do it, Right? And now I'm like just fucking tired as fuck from doing insane, like random builds for like corporate events in Manhattan.
That's fun though. I miss doing that.
It is kind of sick, dude. It is kind of sick but it does take a lot out of you.
Yeah.
It's making me a socialist again though. It's kind of tight,
Nice. Why? Because you feel that you are.
Yeah, just me and the lads, me and the Spanish speaking young men.
Yeah.
Just, we take a lot of abuse downtown, from MoMA.
You're doing builds here?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. Set building.
Sorry, set building. Oh, okay.
So it'd be like just some event. And but there was a crazy one. It was the Wall Street Journal Innovation Awards at MoMA. And there was like a 5-hour window between when the museum closed and the 2-hour party was. Yeah. With like Charlie XCX and stuff like that. Fuck. And it was crazy, dude. We were just in there fucking during the gala, like building more and more walls. Like the party started here, and then we had to quickly build the other part before they came in.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was pretty,
But I feel like you do get good stories. But not like not like you're gonna fucking write that as a short story, but you do just kind of.
No, you get insights on the you just get insight
because a story normally doesn't come from you just thinking like, oh, this is a story, but it comes from like one insight that you have, and then it develops.
Or it can.
Or it can. It can.
Yeah. That's my thing. It's like, it's not that autofiction's bad. It's that you've done nothing worth writing about in your life.
Right. Yeah.
This is the most like toxic writing outlook. But I think on some level, I do unfortunately live by that.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and a lot of the writing I see actually is kind of that vein, or you have to question people's motivations behind what they're writing, because I am a recluse and inveterately kind of a loner, and when I write, I want to go back to this experience I had when I had a panic attack when I read Faulkner. That's what I go back to. I have this experience. And I love writing, and I think about it all the time. And I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, I want to write a book about being downtown so that I can get a book deal and be in this fucking magazine and do this. So you really, a lot of it goes back to like, what's this person's motivations? Or they just like, oh, I want to be in heavy traffic, Or, because with me, like, if you ask what motivates me, it's that same thing. Like I wouldn't even know how to say it, but
Yeah.
I just like when
That
you sit
feeling.
down to write, like I fucking know what's good and what's not good. I know when I'm writing good and when I'm not writing good. And right now I'm
Right.
not writing good, and so my motivation is to just get back to that. But if you asked me to
Right.
say what it is, I could never tell you. You know.
That's interesting that you associate it with like almost a traumatized like panic attack moment because I realized because I was going back.
Not that I ever think about it, but if you were, inveterately, there's this thing inside where
Right. Okay, but you are alone. You do feel like it's like this solitary thing that you do, almost
certainly,
like yeah.
But it is like I can, I take inspiration from being out of that, of
right,
course. You know.
right. You don't have, yeah. You don't have. You're not in like a relationship or anything.
I am.
Oh, you are.
I am in a relationship.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're not a complete liner.
No, but I
Yeah.
do fantasize about it. I do fantasize. No, not about being single, but just like I fantasize
Yeah.
because again, it just goes back to ego death. Because it's like if
Yeah.
I was just fucking, I did, because when. I mean, it was a while ago since this has been truth, but like when you first move to New York, you don't know people, and you're just wandering through the city, and
Right.
you see so much more. And you're so grateful just to fucking be here, and it's like the greatest thing in the world being in New York, and
Yeah.
now it's just this. You barely scrape the surface when you look at it. You just
That's kind of how I feel like what working full time has been again, where I feel like I'm back, like
Nice.
trying to stay, but yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about because I was running back to 2016, and it brought me back to that year, which was 2013. All
Yeah.
of 2013 was the year I read all of. But I think about like that was when I first thought I was a writer and stuff, or decided that, or just thought that.
Yeah.
But I think I was having like a crisis. Like I think I was having a crisis, and I would like stay. I would never leave my room, and I would like listen. And I would listen to music. I was like I heard one time I learned that Nausgaard, when he wrote My Struggle,
Yeah.
he had like big headphones like this, and he would like listen to his favorite like rock bands, and he would listen to them through as he wrote.
it can really help sometimes.
I guess it can.
It
Yeah.
can really help.
But I would just stay in my. I don't know. It was almost like a trauma response of like I'm gonna stay completely by myself and
Yeah.
and then lately. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my trauma responses have been more healed.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know how to like.
Do you feel that response, kind of fueled
most of the things that I did. I
Yeah.
mean, even when I and then going from that into walking.
Yeah.
Right after that, that's what happened. That was a weird trauma. That was a weird like spur.
What do
that
you
was
mean
a weird
walking?
spaz out. Yeah.
You would walk?
No, when I did the walk, when I tried to walk across country.
Oh yeah. When you tried
That
to
was
get
like a
to
spaz
Florida,
out kind
yeah.
of. Do you know what I mean?
How far did you get?
To Colorado.
To Colorado.
Yeah, it was long. It was like 3.5 months. It was 100 days.
Crazy.
But it was like a crazy freak out. And then after
Interesting.
that, it was like.
Did you ever? Because I used to have this freak out where I would walk around Manhattan for
Yeah.
12 hours a day, like the
Damn.
whole day. I would walk across the entirety of Manhattan.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah.
Every day.
And I would listen to music. And
Yeah.
I would like really enjoy listening to music.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It was, the whole time I would be thinking kind of or dramatizing
Right.
almost the situation as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was also a physical impulse. Like
Yeah.
I had to
Yeah.
walk. I could
Yeah.
like I would go home maybe in the afternoon and sit there and I'd be like, got to go back out and just go walk again.
That's good that you do that. I was trying to make a case that like journaling and taking walks is like a classically masculine thing to do, but now it seems like gay or lame. But I don't think it is. I'm trying to bring back like journaling and like taking
Journaling
walks.
is
you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, walking is like when I was living in that apartment with my brothers.
Yeah.
Like not going to school. Spend a lot of time alone as a young person. I don't
Yeah.
think it's good for you to do that. But what I used to do is I would go, because I was 13, 14, 15, like
Yeah.
completely alone, no parents, like. So I was up at all
What-
hours of the night, and so I would like at 1 a.m, I would just leave the house and go for a walk, and it was some of the greatest moments of my life were just like walking
Yeah.
alone at 1 a.m.
But, Yeah.
So I think I've always walked. It's like a complete. Now that I have a car.
Yeah. Now you got a car, you just hit the road and drive.
Now that I drive, it's actually the first threat to that in my whole life. But
Yeah.
no, walking is like it's really important. But I do want to say I think actually journaling has been a detriment to my writing as of
Interesting.
recent. I think
Really?
'cause, was writing first person in the Holderlin character, and then I would put in my own experiences into that character, and then sometimes I would wake up in the morning because I was on a roll for a
Yeah.
long time, and I would wake
Yeah.
up and write for hours before I did anything else, and often usually when I wake up, I journal.
Yeah.
Like, write in my text edit notes, just some bullshit, and that will kind of inspire me to the first thread that I follow for the couple of hours that I write in the morning. But then at a certain point, it's like it just became too muddled, and it's just like I couldn't tell who was who, and I'm just writing a journal, and then the book just became a journal at a certain point. It's like this is not writing; I'm not really writing,
Interesting.
So I think, and now I'm like, the journal is. I still, of course, I write every day,
Yeah.
but the journal is. It's less intimate. I'm kind of
Okay.
afraid of it. I need a
Interesting.
distance
Why are you so
from it.
scared of writing by yourself? What does that say
I
about
don't
it?
know. I'm just afraid of writing right now.
Okay.
Afraid of. I mean, no,
That's
I
funny.
write all the
I
time.
would never journal. I would never journal. Like my stories were like my processing. Until recently I started because I'm substacking my journals.
Yeah.
So
I might stop journaling.
It's like fun.
actually.
Like I'm looking at journaling as like an interesting form.
Yeah.
Where I say the time and I say like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's fun. It's like weirdly, but I don't know. I swear to God. But this has to do with my crisis. I'm just trying to find my way out of my crisis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So when did you start having to work again, or when did you?
Just like this past summer, I was just kind of like waiting.
Yeah.
I was just waiting, or like watching the boat sink, and I was just like, and I kept like upping my standards of living to try to like induce like.
Interesting.
No, I don't know. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. But no, I mean I do. I am living in Manhattan. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not the. But yeah, then this past summer, and then in July I went on like a month-long building job, and then since I've been back, I've just been doing it. But it's good, dude. I don't know. I can't really with everything else in the literary world. I'm not agreeable enough. Like
I'm highly disagreeable. I think it's
when you're able to talk to writers and put together.
but I find I really
agreeableness is a funny thing to.
Yeah.
Very high in agreeableness.
But like when I'm in
my dark triad traits, dude.
Like when I'm in a meeting with like other people, I'm always like, wow, I'm really like malcontent, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm really not. I don't have the attitude that's necessary for long-term success with doing this. I feel like I don't know, like I can be really harsh and like the kind of, what it is. I think there's something inside of me that's like, I don't really want to be with these people right now. So I'm gonna try to distance myself from them. I really do think it's like this kind of inveterate thing. 'Cause
Misanthropy.
in the moment, 100%. That's exactly right. Like when I'm in the moment, I can be very self-aware that oh, you're kind of being a dick right now, But it's like I will follow through that path regardless. But no, I'm very like to be honest with you, heavy traffic. Like I don't like a lot of writing out there, and I don't like a lot of other things that I see, and so I'm like, well, I'm going to do my own thing, because instead of just like
complaining
shitting on
about
everything else.
Yeah,
I'm going to try to.
That's you gotta have. That's a prerequisite for having.
Are you hearing these fireworks?
I know. What is this, dude? Is it November 1? What is it for?
I feel like I know the answer, but yesterday was Halloween. There was a Halloween parade.
Okay.
I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. Maybe the thunder
It's
gods.
Fucking a lot of
it
fireworks.
Is a lot of
though.
fireworks.
I don't know if people can hear this, but it's a lot of fucking fireworks.
Yeah. I mean, but damn, dude. What are you doing this evening? You going to hang out with Dean?
Probably gonna hang out with Dean.
Cool.
Yeah. Gonna hang out with Dean, and I've just got a lot of like shit to do for planning for the
launch.
European thing,
the European launch.
Yeah, all that shit, and so I don't know.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, I gotta read this through. I read about 5 stories from the last one.
Yeah.
I meant to read it all the way through, but I'm having a crisis and I'm like kind of retarded now.
It's
I like the first story.
Yeah, first I think it's by Karshak.
Yeah.
It's good one. But no, I don't expect people to read. I've never heard. Maybe I've heard like 2 people who've told me like, oh, I've read the whole thing. Like most people, they read one piece.
Well, and that was the tie back to what I was trying to say with the Cedric Chisholm, was that he has a whole mythology behind his paintings.
Yeah,
which is kind of sick.
A world
right?
without white people.
Yeah, exactly. World without white people.
Yeah,
but no, they're there. No, The white people are there.
Well,
they're the
it's-
only ones left.
The only ones. Well, but this.
Oh
is
no, the white people have left.
Yeah, the white. Because his play is about this,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
there's like a.
It's called 2200
Yeah,
a
2200.
year.
There's like a disease that's causing white people to turn black.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they're freaking out. It's called Revelitico or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great, but I really like his paintings
His
a lot.
paintings are sick.
I
dude.
really like them a lot. Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah. No, it's gonna be a funny little piece. Nice, dude. All right. Well, I think that was pretty good. Solid 90 for the people to go out and support the man doing the Lord's work.
How long are your podcasts usually?
They range, dude. They range.
Okay.
You know, we could keep going, whatever, dude. I'm chilling. Sometimes they go long. Sometimes, yeah. My podcast. Even I'm losing my vision on my podcasting. Even, but.
When was the last time you did the pod?
What you mean?
Like when was the last episode you did?
I do a lot with Harold, like just like,
Yeah.
So I'm pretty weak. I don't let 2 weeks pass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of them just go right on the Patreon though. Just to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just tend to my following. I don't really like reach out to try to get new people. But
Do you edit the?
no.
No. Okay.
No, I can't, dude. Like back in the day, you listen to the pod, you're like, oh, here. Now it's just like a.
Yeah.
But there's one with Cedric up there. Our conversation is pretty funny.
Nice.
Yeah, we had some similarities, and yeah, but
Did you interview him while he was in New York?
no, we zoomed. He was in London.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was walking around zooming, but yeah, I think I'm gonna talk to Nicolette soon.
Nice.
I'm gonna get back on it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
interview some people, but sick, dude. Nice. Well, appreciate you coming by and
course.
chopping it.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.